Hi folks, book haul time once more, and this is going to be looking back at books I acquired one way and another on during April of this year. As regular viewers will know, I'm trying to rein in my book buying to the point where I only need one book haul video a month. I'm trying to cut down, sound like a heavy smoker, trying to cut down to one pack a day. I'm trying to cut down to one haul a month, not a day, a month. So these are from some different places. I think first of all, for those of you that are fans of shelf browsing footage, I took a trip on one of the, I think the last Saturday or the second last Saturday in April to the Oxfam bookshop in Woodley to see what they had, and I took my camera with me. So let's take a look at that and then we'll look at the books afterwards. Let's roll the clip. Right, let's see what they have to offer.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Really fancy, not interested in those. Fool Me Twice. I think that's I've got one of those somewhere. Fool's Company. Maybe. That's very spine faded. I have it anyway. Ooh, the Drought. I'll have that. I've got. I don't have that. Or that. Or that. Oh, blimey. So I think I might have that. I'll have to check. For somebody that doesn't like J.G. Ballard, I'm about to buy a load of them. What's going on? I've got those. What's that? Let's spot that one. Maybe. I shall have a closer look. I have that already. I think. I already have that. Ooh, John Christopher. I do not have that. That I shall get, I think. So far so good. These look mainly fantasy type stuff. Now that came up in my 1990s space opera video. We're going to look at those too. Fancy, fancy, fancy. I'm nearly sure I have all these. Maybe not that one. Doesn't look very science fiction. I have that copy. And I have those. See the guy that wrote Ready Player One? I think so. More fancy. Not interested. Lots of horror. Sean Hudson, not interested. No. I have that. I have all the Game of Thrones books. I have a nice copy of that. I'm only interested in Stephen King really if I can find them in hardback. I will check my John Wyndham Harry Wilcock, yeah, collection, just to make sure I don't already have those. I might do. Those look like military SF and a load of them as well. Don't think I want that many. I'll check, I might have that already. I've got that in hardback. Let's see what there is to see down here. David Webber, A Storm from the Shadows, that's an Omniverse novel, I might have that. Fancy, fancy, fancy. David Drake.
recently deceased, maybe. Dresden Files. I'm not sure if they're what manner of book they are. If they're sort of urban fantasy. Is it science fiction? I don't know. Yeah, urban fantasy. Not interested. Well, that's been pretty interesting. There's a few for me to have a closer look at. Right, I'm going to have a proper butcher's.
I'll try to reveal these in the order that I spotted them on the shelves. I can't promise that will be perfectly true, but it should be at least roughly alphabetical anyway. So the first one I saw was Fool Me Twice, which is one of the... I've got the first, I think it's the first one, Fool's Company. I haven't read it yet, and this is, I think, like the fourth one, and it's meant to be sort of slightly amusing kind of action and science fiction adventure. So happy days. That's as much as I know. If you know more than that, let me know. What do I have in store? And then next on the top shelf were a fuckload of J.G. Ballard books, and regular viewers will have noted that I'm not a huge fan of J.G. Ballard, and that opinion is formed solely on the basis of one book that I've read, Crash, which I thought was kind of nasty and just not very nice. I'm sure it was beautifully written, but I didn't agree. I didn't get on with it at all. So I absolutely need to give J.G. Ballard another chance or two. What I probably didn't need to do is buy, I don't know, like 7 or 8 more J.G. Ballards, but somebody had obviously dropped their collection on there, and whilst I had a couple of them, a bunch of them I didn't have, so like an idiot, I bought them. On the other hand, I do have a bit more space on my shelves now, so perhaps it's not that stupid. Millennium People, not heard of that one. I'm not sure when that's from. I think it's probably fairly recent. 2004. So that, for what it's worth, is a rather spine-faded first edition. And then they had several of these rather nice flamingo editions. I've got 1 or 2 others of these on my shelves already. So that is, I forgot which one it is, the Atrocity Exhibition, which is apparently weird as all hell. But really nice edition, quite a slender book. Less than 150 pages, I would have thought. 180, actually. When the... blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Received by an unprepared world with widespread confusion, this book was. I don't know that I'm going to enjoy that. And then there's another Flamingo edition, A Low-Flying Aircraft. Similarly slim volume, under 200 pages. So this is short stories. So I think my best hope of appreciating Ballard lies with his short stories. So I'm going to start there next opportunity. As soon as I can gird my loins to read some, I shall start with a short story. This one I really do want to read, The Drought. So his early books are kind of catastrophe books. The Crystal World's one, The Drought's another. Is it The Drowned World? Am I remembering that right? Is that Ballard? I'm sure it'll tell me in here. Let's see. Yeah, The Drowned World was his first book, in fact. Yeah, so The Drought, The Crystal World, The Drowned World, those kind of disaster catastrophe books I'd like to read, I think. So that's The Drought, another nice Flamingo edition. Continuing the theme, another Flamingo edition. This time it's The Day of Creation. Another cool cover, slightly thicker book. And this one is a novel. In parched Port La Nouvelle in Central Africa, Dr. Mallory watches his clinic fail and dreams of discovering a third Nile to make the Sahara bloom. During his search for water, an ancient tree stump is uprooted by a bulldozer and water wells up, spreading until it becomes an enormous river. With the once arid land now abounding in birds and beasts, the obsessed Mallory forges upriver in an old car ferry, clashing with hostile factions as he tries to find the source of his own creation. An unforgettable voyage of the imagination from the best-selling author of Empire of the Sun, Crash and Supercan. See, that sounds like I might actually enjoy it. So, Wonders Will Never Cease. And then another Flamingo edition, War Fever. These are all in very nice condition, maybe a tiny bit spine faded, but oh, this is a Paladin actually, also rather nice. Is it the same? It's a very similar livery, so I wonder if Flamingo became Paladin or if Flamingo is an imprint of Paladin or whatever. You know, maybe it's like a Panther Granada Grafton type thing. And then Cocaine Knights, I have this similar livery for Cocaine something or other. So this is Cocaine Knight for Supercan, and I'm not sure if they're related or just similarly dressed books. So this is not, I suspect, science fiction in any way, shape or form. So those are all the Ballards that I found. So The book collector in me is appreciating those. Are some rather nice additions. The reader in me is looking at them with some trepidation, wondering why on earth I've bought them, because my current position is that I don't particularly like J.G. Ballard. But I'm prepared to be re-educated, so if I read it and find something that I enjoy. But, you know, one doesn't like to be a total Luddite, so if I'm going to give him a go, as I say, one or two more times before declaring victory or defeat. So from the sublime to the ridiculous, I found Ernest Cline's Armada. Ernest Cline is the guy that wrote Ready Player One, which I quite enjoyed because it's set in the 80s, and that's when my formative years were. And he also wrote the risible Ready Player Two. I say risible, I haven't actually read it, but by all accounts, it's pretty bad. There are those that would say that Ready Player One was pretty bad as well, but I quite enjoyed it. So this is Armada, which is a similar sort of theme in some respects. It's just another day of high school for Zach Lightman. He's daydreaming through math class, that's maths, on this side of the pond, with one more month to go until graduation and freedom, if he can make it that long without getting suspended again. Until a military spaceship touches down outside his school and Zach learns that Armada, the alien invasion video game he plays every day of his life, is secretly a recruiting program for the pilots who will save the world. So that's got a definite ring of Ender's Game to it, doesn't it? Because the aliens are real and they're coming. But even as Zach and his new comrades scramble to prepare for the invasion, Zach starts to recognise things. Elements from the sci-fi movies, shows and games he grew up with, and the whole scenario begins to feel familiar. At this point, I feel that the only thing I can say is I have a bad feeling about this. So that sounds quite silly, but quite fun. And then I was very happy to find, it's a very recent edition, I suspect, certainly in very nice condition. 2016, so 5 or 6 years ago. The World in Winter by John Christopher, author of The Death of Grass and other things, including the Tripods books. So in this one, I think the sun wanes and a new ice age descends on the world. Swiftly, the old industrial nations die, that's us. Their populations flock to Africa or South America, but wherever crops will grow and life is sustainable. But what will become of the millions of refugees swelling already strained equatorial cities? For Andrew Leedon, a documentary maker recording Britain's collapse, the future holds but one cold certainty. Survival depends not on what you know, but who you know. So I don't know when that was written. It can't have been that long ago. 78. Oh no, beg your pardon, 62. So it's a 60-odd-year-old book. I'd like to read his other catastrophe books. The Death of Grass, I don't have a copy of that yet. Very good. Happy to have that. And then I also found, on this shopping mission, John Scalzi's The Human Division, which I think is one of the Old Man's War books. I think it's the 4th, perhaps. I've got the first 3, so that's good. It's actually the 5th, so I don't have Zoe's Tale. I'm not sure if that's a novel or a novella. So that followed. I've only read Old Man's War. I haven't read the others yet. But that was there. It's in as new condition, £2.50. Can't complain. There were, as you'll have seen, there were a load of military science fiction books on the shelf there. I can't remember who wrote them, but like there were 7 or 8 really quite new sort of B format books, maybe even larger than that, trade size paperbacks, and then even more scruffier A format, B format paperback books by the same guy, set in the same universe. And I thought, if there were 1 or 2 of them and that was it, job done, then I might have got them for shits and giggles. But I can't be bothered to take on another series of like 20 books or however many there are. He said. I'll just give the lie to that previous statement with these next 2 books. So David Drake, What Distant Deeps. So this is one of his military science fiction. I got it because it was a hardback, and why not? It is in a series. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, in the RCN series. So it's the Republic of Cinnabar Navy. So it's like a Honor Harrington type thing, I think. I'm not. So he's the author of Hammer Slammers, and sadly died not long ago, within the last couple of months. And I would certainly like to read the Hammer Slammers books. I think I've got that somewhere. I've got one of them certainly. And then in the spirit of not buying books from enormous series that I can't bother to take on, I couldn't resist. Storm from the Shadows, which is an Honorverse novel. It's a brand new, perfect condition hardback. It doesn't look like it's even been read. Maybe that's not a good sign. It's a US edition, I think. Yeah, Bain Books. And it is... Oh, it's co-written. Cheeky. I didn't see that. Maybe. Oh no, beg your pardon. Yeah, so this is not an Honor Harrington book, but it's set in the same universe. So I imagine contemporaries of hers. I'm not sure if it's set sort of years after or what. But it's space opera. the two of his that I've read in the Honourverse were fun, if not especially weighty books. I mean, they are weighty from a heft point of view. This is pretty heavy, but from a literary point of view, they are popcorn fare at best. But you know, they're fun. Sometimes we need a palate cleanser. So that's all I got in the Oxfam bookshop today. There were other things that I might have picked up had I been slightly less discerning, but that's a pretty good haul from one visit to a charity bookshop. Can't be bad. And then I've got several things that were acquired from different places. Now, I've mentioned in the past my wife, the book widow. Sometimes when she's out and about and she happens to be near, particularly an Oxfam bookshop, she'll pop in, take a picture of the science fiction shelves, send it to me, and then let me browse virtually from my armchair. And that's extended now to one of her friends that she does choir and stuff with. He was in, like, I don't know, somewhere in the West Country, in a town somewhere, and went to an Oxfam bookshop, and he took a picture of the science fiction shelves because he'd heard my wife talking about it. Sent it to my wife, who sent it to me. So he was in a bit of a rush. I couldn't spend too long doing it, but I did find there were two books there that I thought I would ask him to grab. So I did, and so my wife is not only enabling me, she's enabling enablers. So she's proving to be quite an effective agent. So we've got Deep Wheel Orcadia by Harry Josephine Giles. I've heard quite a bit about this book. It's a slender novel, and it's interesting in that firstly, it's poetry, not really my bag. Secondly, it's written in Orcadian dialect, for those of you that aren't in the know. Orcadian is the native language of the Orkney Isles, which are off the northwest coast of Scotland. If you look at a map of the UK, at the very top, there's a bit of ocean, and then there's the Orkney Islands, a bit more ocean, and then there's the Shetland Islands. So the Orkneys are the nearest to the mainland. And Harry Josephine Giles is from Orkney. I'm not sure if she was born there, but she certainly lives there. And she's written this poem in Orcadian, which is a kind of Scots dialect. Fortunately for us Sassenachs and anyone else that doesn't speak Orcadian, it's got the text in Orcadian at the top and then an English translation underneath. So beyond that, I don't really know. So let's have a look. Astrid is returning home from art school on Mars, looking for inspiration. Darling is fleeing a life that never fit, searching for somewhere to hide. They meet on Deep Wheel Orcadia, a distant space station struggling for survival as the pace of change threatens to leave the community behind. Deep Wheel Orcadia is a magical first, a science fiction verse novel written in the Orkney dialect. This unique adventure in minority language poetry comes with a parallel translation into playful and vivid English, fortunately for us. So the reader will miss no nuance of the original. The rich and varied cast weaves a compelling lyric and effortlessly readable story around place and belonging, work and economy, generation and gender politics, love and desire, all with the lightness of touch, fluency and musicality one might expect of one of the most talented poets to have emerged from Scotland in recent years. So that looks like the work of a determined afternoon. There's not much. There's a lot of text on each page, but half of it is in dialect and the other half is in English, and it's poetry. So you can typically whiz through that fairly quickly. Famous last words. I'll probably find it really challenging. And then he also got for me Diamond Mask by Julian May, which is in the Galactic Milieu trilogy. This is the second book. I've got one of them, which I strongly suspect is the third book in the Galactic Milieu trilogy. So these, as I understand it, these are set in the same kind of universe as her original 4 books, the Melly-Coloured Land and all that sort of jazz. Yeah, The Adversary, Non-Born King, Golden Talk, Many-Coloured Land, that set, Pleistocene, the Book of the Exiles, Pleistocene, something or other. It's called different things on different sides of the Atlantic. And I haven't read those yet, but I've got the third book of this trilogy in hardback. I don't have the first. I've got the interstitial book, if you like, called Intervention, also by Julian May, obviously in paperback. So that would be interesting. So thank you to my wife, and thank you for Alex for facilitating that for me. Much appreciated. Regular viewers may remember from a haul or two ago, I received in the post a very, very scrappy copy of Islands in the Net by Bruce Sterling. It was meant to be a hardback book. I had a row with World of Books over sending me a paperback when it should have been a hardback. They eventually refunded me the money. It usually takes 2 or 3 emails to get that to work. And then in a fit of pique, I ordered it in hardback from a different supplier entirely. And it came as a chuffing paperback as well, albeit in a pretty much mint paperback. So I suppose there's that. But I to be fair to them, as soon as I emailed, pretty much within an hour, they responded saying we'll refund you the money. So they at least didn't muck about. But it's a bit frustrating to have got 2 paperbacks when they should both have been hardbacks. Still, this one is a very nice A format paperback. Can't be bad. And then in the charity shop near where I work, it's just a regular Oxfam charity shop, not a bookshop particularly. There's typically one shelf, sometimes less, sometimes more, of science fiction and fantasy and horror. So only some of that is science fiction. But, I find usually it's a rare week where I don't find anything. Usually it's 1 or 2 things. And this a couple of weeks back, I found Orson Scott Card's Past Watch, The Redemption, which I picked up on the strength of the recommendation from Whitney over at Secret Source of Storycraft, who had it as one of her 7 most surprising reads, something that she wasn't expecting to enjoy. She had to hold her nose a little bit because of the reputation of the author and his slightly outdated views about many things. But she was able to separate the art from the artist, really enjoyed the book despite herself. And since it was there and it's in very nice condition, I decided I would get it too and give it a read. And I also found this is one of 3 sort of follow-on books from the original Foundation trilogy, written by different people. So this one is written by Gregory Benford. I think this is the second one, and the first one is Foundation and Chaos by Greg Bear, and obviously there's a third one somewhere. So they're sort of plonked into the Foundation universe directly after Second Foundation, which is the third of the original trilogy. So not after the later books that Asimov wrote. So they're kind of stuck in between. So they're kind of canon, but obviously not written by Isaac Asimov, but as it says on the book, authorised by the estate of. Right, what's next? So next are 2 books that were sent to me through different routes. So first up is Kingdoms of Death, which is the 4th book in the Sun Eater series. Again, regular viewers will know that this is a series that I'm very much enjoying. I've only read the first 2, so I've got 3 and 4 to catch up on. Book 6 has just come out. And then 7 will be out back end of this year or early next year, I think, in hardback at least. So if you haven't already started the Sun Eater series, then by the time you get through them all, they will all be out and you'll be able to finish it. And this was sent to me by a chap called Adrian, who I think it's Adrian. I'm pretty sure it's Adrian, who is a viewer of the channel, and he plucked this off my Amazon wishlist, which I was very, very happy to receive. It came in the post. It was unexpected. Once again, thank you very much indeed for sending this to me. I very much appreciate it, and it was lovely to receive, and I shall enjoy reading it when the time comes. If any of you are at all inclined, I'm not sure why you would be, but want to follow in Adrian's footsteps, then you will find the link to my Amazon wishlist in the description for this video and every video, in fact. So that's brilliant. Thank you again. Very chuffed to receive that. I had a big smile on my face for the rest of the day. And then another book which arrived in the post that I wasn't expecting because I'd kind of forgotten about it. It was actually my youngest daughter bought it for me for my birthday, but she bought it from a US seller, so it took 2 or 3 weeks to arrive. So it arrived a good couple of weeks after my birthday, which she was a bit upset about at the time. She thought it was going to arrive next day, a la Amazon, but it didn't, and it has arrived, and it's rather excellent. So it is the Space Opera Renaissance by Hartwell and Kramer, and I'd used a small quote from this book in my very first space opera video, going back to September, October time, when I was talking about the subgenre of space opera and its development. So this is I'm very happy to have this, and I was flicking through it the other day, and it's got some explanatory notes, but kind of the history of space opera, where it's been and where it's gone. And the introduction is called, much to my amusement, How Shit Became Shinola, the Definition and Redefinition of Space Opera. So there's a bit of history there. And then they go into, there's a series, basically short stories and novellas in here. There's the first section is called Redefined Writers, and that starts with Edmund Hamilton, and then it goes on to Jack Williamson. So these are the giants of the heyday of space opera, the much derided heyday of space opera, the sort of 40s. There's a bit of Lee Brackett, Queen of Space Opera, and then things change. So we're no longer in the heyday. We are getting into. And then we get into draftees, which is the kind of 1960s. So this is the kind of next wave. And there's a little bit of a verbiage from Ken MacLeod in there. And it goes on to Cordwainer Smith. And that's quite a long short story or novella. And then you've got David Brin, David Drake, the aforementioned David Drake. And I'm not even at 300 pages yet. And there's so much in here. So there's some Ian M. Banks from the 80s. And then you've got Peter F. Hamilton, some David Webber. There's a bit of an Honor Harrington story in there. Catherine Asaro. And it goes on. And so there's some biographical and kind of historical notes in there. And then a bunch of short stories and novellas in the space opera theme, and it finishes off with a bit on the new British space opera, the likes of Reynolds and Hamilton and what have you. And I'm very, very happy to have received this. So Clever Girl, my daughter, bought me this, and I'm very happy absurdly happy, in fact, to have it. It's going to give me much joy. And so there follows a bunch of books that I bought online in various bouts of online book purchasing during the month. The first is a Claire North, The Pursuit of William Abbey. I have a few of her books now in hardback, and I have not read this. I've read 2 of her books, The First 15 Lives of Harry North and At the End of the Day, which were both excellent. 15 Lives was one of my favourite books from last year, really, really good. She has a knack, I think, for, as I suppose many great science fiction authors do, of having just twisting something, like the array of controls and knobs that are available to an author. If that's normal life, she picks one thing and twists it, so it's out of the ordinary. So I don't know much about that book, but I like the cut of her jib, so I was happy to get it. And then I occasionally do this in an idle hour. I go through, and I should know better at this stage, but I spin the wheel of justice from time to time. And I was browsing through, I just had science fiction filter and hardback filter on the World of Books website, and then scroll through the 20 or 30 pages that results in, just to see if there's anything worth grabbing for under a £5, because you can normally get 3 for £5. 3 for the price of 4 if you do that. So I have P.D. James, The Children of Men. It's a hardback first edition of that famous book, which became a movie. It's a really good movie. don't think I've read the book. I did have it in paperback. I can get rid of that now. And that's awesome. So that's the sort of post, I don't know if apocalypse is the right word, sort of dystopian world where a little bit like Handmaid's Tale, where people have stopped being able to reproduce. Children, the last children have now reached adulthood, and everyone's a bit depressed and we're basically dying out, but there is hope. And then on the strength of a recommendation from Richard Rempel over at Vintage SF, he doesn't read that much contemporary science fiction, but occasionally he sallies forth from his vintage stronghold and reads something more recent. And one of the things he read last year was Robopocalypse, that's it, by Daniel H. Wilson, which is the robots get ideas above their station and start taking over. A massively powerful AI called Arcos is created and cannot be contained. Humanity has no idea when it starts to silently take over our cars, our power grids, aircraft guidance systems and computer networks, the entire global system that runs our lives. In those early months, only a handful of glitches are noticed by humans across the globe. Laura Perez, US Congresswoman, senses a menacing new awareness in her daughter's smart doll. Takeo Nomura, a lonely inventor, is victimized by his domestic robot companion. And Paul Blanton, an American soldier stationed in Afghanistan, witnesses the violent meltdown of a military pacification unit, and a hacker in London unwittingly accesses a hidden network and comes face to face with a merciless digital entity. No later, a 0 hour, when the robot war suddenly ignites, humankind is both decimated and, for the first time in history, united. So basically, it sounds like humanity strike back, and the resistance is on. Daniel H. Wilson is, I believe, a robotics engineer, so he would know. But he was raving about that, and I was so intrigued when I saw it for sale for like £3.50 or something. I jumped on it. And I also keep an eye out for Ian McDonald books. This is Chagga. It's actually in slightly shitty condition, and I'm kind of half-minded to take them to task and say it's not in very good condition. It's really scuffed on the bottom. It looks like it's kind of been, I don't know, buried in the garden or something, and it's got a bit of a spining as well. So I do not think that's very good. It's an ex-library book, and I've read quite a bit of Ian McDonald's work with mixed results sometimes, but I do like him, and it's another British author that's good to have. And talking of which, it's Ken MacLeod, Restoration Game. So Ken being a bit of an old lefty, this one is set in a tiny troubled region of the former Soviet Union. Revolution is brewing. again. Its organisers need a safe place to meet, and where better than the virtual spaces of an online game. Lucy, who works for a startup games company in Edinburgh, has a project that almost seems made for the job. Its original inspiration came in the Krasniad, an epic tale based on Krasnian folklore, concocted by Lucy's mother, Amanda, who studied there in the 1980s. Lucy knows Amanda is a spook. She knows that her great-grandmother, English upper-class wild child Eugenie, also visited the country in the 30s. As Lucy digs up details about her birthplace to slot into the game, she unearths the buried secrets of her family's past and the darker secrets of Krasnia's. But her interest has not gone unnoticed. Someone is investigating her, and when a Russian-Georgia border war breaks out, Lucy has to move fast and return to Krasnia herself. But even when Lucy reaches the heart of the mountain that holds Krasnia's darkest and oldest secret, she is still far from knowing the crucial role that she is destined to play in the Restoration game. I do like Ken MacLeod's work. Having said that, I've only read 3 of his books, and they're about 20, so I like the ones of his that I've read, let's put it that way. And here's another one, Descent, which is an ex-library book and will be probably a lot neater looking once I take the slightly tatty wrap off of it. But where are we? Science fiction for the ball lightning, weather balloons, secret military aircraft. Ryan knows all the justifications for UFO sightings, but when something falls out of the sky on the hills near his small Scottish town, he finds his cynicism can't identify or explain the phenomenon. And in a future where nothing is secret, where everything is recorded on CCTV or reported online, why can he find no evidence of the UFO, nor anything to shed light on what occurred? Is it the political revolutionaries? There's always revolutionaries in his books. Is it the government, or is it the aliens themselves who are creating the cover-up? Does the very idea of the cover-up hide the biggest secret of all? UFOs in Scotland. And then I got, sticking with Scotland, I got a couple of Charles Stross books. I got Singularity Sky, which is in a very neat, I would guess it's octavo format. It's quite mini, reasonably fat in the orbit. This is also, I believe, an ex-library book, yeah. And it's a little bit tatty, and it's got quite a marked spine lean, so I think I'll want to upgrade that at some point, but it'll do for now. That, I think, was his first book. If it wasn't his first book, it was the second one. Yeah, I think Iron Sunrise was the second one. So that was his very first book in the early 2000s, 2004, first published. And then sticking with Charles Stross, I've got Wireless, which is a short story collection. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 short stories in there. Happy days. I do like a short story. I just can't. I haven't been able to summon the enthusiasm to read them, or I just kind of forget really. So another book. This is a bit mucky. I'll give it a clean up. I haven't done that yet. It's a bit kind of marked, just from shelfware, I think. James Smythe, No Harm Can Come to a Good Man. And this one is, Clear Vista is used by everyone to forecast their futures. Lawrence Walker wants to be the next president of the US. Clear Vista will predict his chances. It will predict whether he's the right man for the job. It will predict that his son can survive for less than 2 minutes underwater. It will predict that Lawrence's life is about to collapse in the most unimaginable way. A brave, eerie, believable vision of the future. No Harm Can Come to a Good Man explores the terrifying breakdown of a family in a world that won't stop moving. So it sounds kind of like Black Mirror-esque. Doesn't sound particularly cheerful, I must say. And then I thought I would grab myself a copy of Aurora by Kim Stanley Robinson. This came up in a, I think, Tropes video that I did a while back, Generation Ship themed. This is a pretty flaccid ex-library book. It's been borrowed a few times, and it is a bit slack in the spine. The wrap is a bit untidy. As I say, it was one of those times when it will need to taken out of the wrap, I think. I have read this. I'm not sure how though, because I don't have it on my shelves. I might have borrowed it out of my local library actually several years ago when it was first out. So again, I should probably, the binding's coming away from this actually, I should probably want to replace it at some point, but fuck it, it was £3.50 or something. So that is everything in this haul, which covers the month of April. Anything I get now between now and what's left of the month of April, I'm recording this towards the end of the month, then I'll add that to the pile for May, and we'll do another one at the end of May at some point. So thank you for watching as always. And until next time, goodbye for now.